Have you ever had that feeling? You know that feeling where you're in a new place and you're trying to find your way around, or maybe you're trying to understand like a brand new idea.
Yeah.
And you just feel lost, kind of like adrift, like you're not sure which direction to go or what to do next.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. We've all been there at some point.
Well, today we are tackling one very specific way to beat that lost feeling. We're going to focus on how to ask for directions in English and how to actually understand what people tell you.
That's a super practical skill to have. I mean, especially if you travel or you're interacting with English speakers pretty regularly.
Yeah, for sure. And luckily, there's some really good info out there on this. We're diving into the day 6 content from EnglisPodcast. It's really well put together and easy to follow.
Yeah, and think of this deep dive as your like navigation guide.
Yeah. We want to make sure you have the right phrases and that you understand what you need to confidently find your way around a new city. Or even just like ask where the nearest coffee shop is.
Right.
And maybe avoid that panic that sets in when you realize you've gone the wrong way.
Definitely.
We'll cover like the most important things to say when you need help, and then how to like decipher the directions you get. We'll even do a little role play. So let's get started. What are some of those must-know phrases that you should use when you need to ask for directions?
Well, the EnglisPodcast material starts with politeness. You know you want to be polite when you're asking someone for help. They highlight a couple really good opening lines. The first one is like a classic. It works in tons of situations. Excuse me, can you help me?
Yeah.
Just simple and direct. Everyone knows what you mean. And it shows respect too.
It's like the universal way to get someone's attention without being rude. It's a good one.
Yeah.
And I like the other phrase they suggest even better, especially if you're pretty sure you're already lost.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Hi, I'm a bit lost. Do you know where place is? What's great about that one is that it tells the person exactly what's up right away. You know, you're not just asking like a random question. You're making it clear you need help getting to a specific place, like whether it's a shop or a landmark or even just a general area.
It gets rid of any confusion. You're not just curious. You're like, help.
Exactly. And then from there, once you've kind of politely started the conversation, you can get more specific about where you want to go.
Right. So what are some like common places that people might need to find?
Well, the material gives some really good practical examples. Like, let's say you need a bank. You could ask, how do I get to the nearest bank? Which makes sense. You know, if you're in a new place, you often need to find a bank pretty quickly.
Right. That's usually one of the first things people need to figure out. And another one, especially if you're like exploring or need a break, is there a cafe around here?
Yeah.
Just nice and simple.
Yeah. Super common question. And for getting around like a larger area, you really want to know where the transportation hubs are. So something like, which way is the train station? Is a good one to know.
Right. And these are all great starting points. Yeah. But what happens is someone gives you directions and you don't quite hear it all, or you don't get everything they said. It can be pretty easy for that to happen, especially if there's a lot of noise around, or the person's talking fast or with an accent you're not used to. What's the best way to ask for them to say it again?
Well, you know, it's always better to ask them to repeat or slow down than to just wander off in the wrong direction because you didn't want to ask.
Right.
One of the simplest ways to get them to say it again is, could you repeat that, please? Yeah. Just polite and clear.
Yeah.
Let them know what you need.
Yeah, that's a classic for a reason. And sometimes it's not even that you didn't hear the words, it's that they were just too fast for you to process. You know what I mean?
Right.
So in those situations, another really helpful phrase is, sorry, I didn't catch that. Can you speak slowly?
Yeah.
You know, it just directly addresses the speed thing, and there's a better chance you'll get it the second time around.
I think it's really interesting how most people are happy to help. Like if you ask clearly and politely for them to clarify something, they'll usually do it.
Right.
Okay, so now you know how to ask for directions. But then there's the whole thing of understanding the directions you get, which is where landmarks and prepositions come in. Yeah,
this is where it gets interesting. So when someone's giving you directions, they'll often use things that are easy to spot as kind of reference points. You know, like EnglisPodcast uses the example, it's next to the post office.
Right.
But that only helps if you know what the post office looks like in that area.
Yeah, exactly. The landmarks are like visual anchors. Like if all the post offices in that area have like a certain color or a special sign, then that phrase is super useful. Another example is look for the big red sign. It's all about those visual cues.
It's like they're saying, hey, keep your eyes peeled for this thing that really stands out.
Exactly.
So you have landmarks, and then you have prepositions, which are these little words that tell you like where something is in relation to something else or like the path you're taking. Let's talk about some of the most common ones.
Okay. Well, one you'll hear a lot is go straight ahead.
Yeah.
That's usually like the starting point. It means keep going the way you're going. Don't turn.
Yeah, it's like the default setting for directions.
Right.
And then, of course, you have like turning instructions, like turn left, right at the traffic light.
Right.
Which is cool because it combines the turning with like a very common road feature, the traffic light. So you know exactly when and where to turn.
Yeah, it gets rid of any ambiguity because you have that visual marker. And another way someone might tell you where a place is by relating it to other places that you might recognize. Like it's between the pharmacy and the supermarket.
Right.
So it's telling you that your destination is in that space between two things that you should be able to find.
Right. So next to between, straight ahead, left, right. These prepositions are like the essential pieces for understanding where you're going in relation to everything else.
Right.
And then to give you an even better idea of the journey, people will often give you estimations of distance or time.
Right.
Which can be super helpful to figure out how long it'll take you to walk there. Or if you might need to consider other transportation options. Like someone might say it's about 5 minutes on foot.
Right. It's interesting though, because those time estimations can vary depending on how fast the person giving the directions walks.
Yeah.
So it's usually approximate, but still useful.
For sure. It gives you a general idea. And another really common phrase that helps you like pinpoint the location as you're moving is you'll see it on your left. Which is like telling you to pay attention to what's on your left side because that's where the thing you're looking for is going to show up.
Right. And you might hear, you'll see it on your right too.
Yeah.
Those little cues really help you anticipate as you're getting close.
Right. So it's all these little details that actually make a big difference in terms of you staying oriented and recognizing the place when you get to it.
Exactly. Okay. So we've talked about how to ask for directions and how to understand them. Now, EnglisPodcast actually has this cool map-based role play idea. Obviously, we can't look at a map together because this is audio only, but even just and what I think is really smart about this is how they pack so many of the key elements we've talked about into such a short conversation. You have the polite opening, the specific question about the park, the directions using go straight with a distance 2 blocks, a turning instruction turn right, and then a landmark the bank used to clarify where the park is across from.
Yeah. And I really like the pro tip they add in there, which is use landmarks for the blue building to make it easier.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's so real world.
Yeah.
If someone mentions something distinctive about a building, like its color or something unique about it, that's going to help you so much more than just the name of the place. It gives you an extra layer of info to look for.
Exactly. It's like real world directions often have those little extra details that are super helpful. So even though we don't have a visual map here, you can kind of create a mental map in your head.
Yeah.
Like imagine a street with a park and a bank and maybe a cafe and you can start to connect the dots.
Totally. You're actively using your imagination to build that picture in your head. So as we wrap up here, it's clear that knowing these simple phrases and concepts can make a huge difference when you're trying to get around in an English-speaking place. Whether you're on vacation or studying abroad or just need to find an address you've never been to before, knowing how to ask for directions and understand what people tell you can really help you avoid getting lost and just, make the whole experience less stressful.
Right. And it's not even just about the mechanics of getting from A to B. It's about feeling more confident about communicating in English in general.
Yeah.
Which can then give you more opportunities to explore and connect with people and just be more independent when you're in a new place.
Exactly. So it's a small skill, but it can have a big impact. Now, the EnglisPodcast material also had this cool practice challenge where they had, imagine you're at a train station, you're trying to get to a restaurant. We didn't do that specific role play, but I think it's a great idea to take a minute now and think about how you would ask for those directions. Like picture a place in your own neighborhood.
Right.
Maybe a place you go to all the time. And try to explain to someone how to get there using these phrases.
It's interesting because if you can confidently ask for directions in English, it might make you want to be more adventurous and explore new places.
Totally. Yeah. So give that mental exercise a try. Hopefully this deep dive has given you a solid foundation and maybe even boosted your confidence a little bit when it comes to using English to get around. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.